It was a quiet morning in the sprawling mansion of Victor Langston, a billionaire known across cities as the man with a heart of iron and eyes that never softened. The golden light of dawn spilled through tall French windows, gliding across marble floors and sparkling chandeliers that hung like frozen stars. Witnesses to a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing that could make him smile. Victor had built his empire from dust and determination. Every dollar he owned came from sleepless nights and ruthless deals. But in chasing success, he'd forgotten what peace even felt like. His life was built on contracts, caution, and cold logic, and he trusted no one. Except that morning, he wasn't thinking about business. He was running a test to expose the truth about the quiet girl who had started working in his home not long ago. Her name was Clara, soft-spoken, polite, almost invisible among the mansion's staff. Yet something about her unsettled Victor. Maybe it was her silence. Maybe it was how she treated his paralyzed mother, with a tenderness he hadn't seen in years. Or maybe it was that she never met his eyes. Not once. And before we go further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of a good heart, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Because today's story will remind you, sometimes the smallest hearts carry the greatest strength. That day began like any other. The air smelled faintly of lilies from the vases arranged every morning. The clock struck 8. Clara entered the drawing room, her steps light, careful, as if afraid to disturb the silence. Her uniform was crisp but a little worn at the seams, and her hands trembled as she started wiping the glass table where Victor lay pretending to sleep. On that table, a few crisp $100 bills lay scattered. A trap Victor had set himself. He'd been hearing whispers, rumors of small amounts missing from around the house. No proof, just suspicion, and Victor trusted his instincts. The quiet ones, he always thought, were the ones to watch. Clara's eyes caught the money. For a second she froze. Her breath hitched. The morning breeze from the window brushed her hair, and in the polished glass Victor could see her reflection, hesitant, thoughtful. He stayed perfectly still, feigning sleep, waiting for her to fail his test. But what happened next made his chest tighten in a way he didn't expect. Clara gently gathered the bills, not to hide them, but to straighten them. She aligned the edges carefully, as if the money itself deserved respect, and placed them neatly in the center of the table. Then, something changed. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled envelope. Old, sealed, worn at the corners. Her fingers shook as she placed it beside the money. She hovered for a moment, whispering something too soft for Victor to hear. Then she stepped back, eyes glistening, and quietly resumed dusting the shelf, like nothing had happened. When she finally left the room, Victor sat up, his pulse quickened. He reached for the envelope. It was addressed to him, Mr. Langston, written in neat but trembling handwriting. Inside were two things, a folded note and a faded photograph. The note read, "Sir, I found this money yesterday under the couch while cleaning, but I didn't know who it belonged to. I didn't want to assume. I'm leaving it here so it can be returned properly. Thank you for giving me this job. It means more than you know. Clara." Victor read the words twice before his gaze shifted to the faded photograph tucked behind the note. It was of a little girl, maybe 10 years old, lying in a hospital bed, clutching a teddy bear almost too big for her arms. On the back, written in that same gentle handwriting, were 6 simple words that pierced through his chest like glass. "My little sister, Anna, I'm saving for her treatment." For the first time in years, Victor Langston felt something crack inside him. The walls of suspicion he'd built so carefully began to crumble. The weight of his own mistrust pressed against his ribs as guilt rose in his throat. He had tested this girl's heart, expecting deceit, and instead he'd found honor and grace. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the photo. Memories he thought were long buried came rushing back, of his own sister, sick and frail, begging for his time while he was too busy chasing profits to care. That moment haunted him, but he had silenced it for years. Now it roared back, demanding to be heard. Over the next few days, Victor found himself watching Clara closely, not out of suspicion this time, but quiet admiration. She always arrived early, left late, and worked with a calm dedication that didn't seek praise. He'd often see her by his mother's bedside, reading softly or adjusting her blanket with gentle hands. His mother, who hadn't smiled in months, began to brighten again, her laughter echoing faintly through halls that had long been cold. And yet, Clara never spoke of her sister, never mentioned her struggles. She simply worked, grateful for what little she had. One stormy evening, thunder rolling through the hills, Victor couldn't sleep. The house creaked under the weight of rain, and his thoughts wouldn't settle. As he wandered through the halls, he paused outside the kitchen. Through the door's glass pane, he saw Clara, sitting alone at the table eating a small piece of bread, a cup of tea steaming beside her. She stared at the lightning, half frightened, half lost in thought. There was something so pure, so heartbreakingly simple about her, something that reminded him of who he used to be before money hardened his soul. The next morning, Victor made a decision. Without telling anyone, he called his accountant and arranged for a large anonymous donation to a hospital specializing in pediatric care under Clara's name. He didn't want her to know it came from him. He wanted her to believe it was a miracle, not charity. That evening, when the hospital called Clara with the news that her sister's entire treatment had been paid for, she collapsed in tears right there in the hallway. Her sobs weren't of sorrow. They were of relief and gratitude. Victor stood hidden in the shadows, watching her break down, and for the first time in years, he felt something inside him heal. The next morning, Clara came to work with eyes red from crying but a smile that outshone the sun. She hummed softly as she cleaned, and the mansion seemed to glow with her energy. It wasn't just a house anymore, it felt alive. Victor couldn't keep the secret any longer. Later that day, he found her arranging flowers in the drawing room. "Clara," he said quietly. She turned, startled. "I need to tell you something," he began. "That morning you were being tested. I left the money there on purpose. I wanted to see what you'd do." He paused, guilt heavy in his voice. "And it was me. The donation. For your sister." Clara stood silent for a long moment, her eyes filling with tears. Then she smiled, a trembling, heartfelt smile, and whispered, "Thank you, sir." Two simple words, but they carried more sincerity than any speech he'd ever heard in a boardroom. In that moment, Victor finally understood. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the rare strength to stay pure in a world built on greed. Trust, he realized, isn't born from power. It's born from humility and heart. From that day forward, everything changed. The mansion seemed warmer. The lilies smelled sweeter. His mother's laughter echoed through the halls again. And Clara stayed. Not as a maid, but as part of the family. A quiet reminder that goodness still exists. If this story touched your heart or reminded you how acts of kindness can change lives, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to HOA Glorious Stories. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Victor's place that morning?